Well. All right. Welcome today to Mr. Lynn Vanlandingham of Five Tool. And Lynn, it's funny. Welcome to the show, by the way. It's funny whenever it blows my mind. I remember meeting with you in Frisco in 2013. We went to your son and one other guy, and then Pat Leach and I, we all met at a Mexican restaurant and just talked shop and talked ideas and everything. And you were just launching Five Tool. And we sit here in 2024 talking with Lynn Vanlandingham of Five Tool. And guys, there isn't one person in this country that's going to listen to this podcast that doesn't know Five Tool. Lynn Vanlandingham, welcome to the Baseball Forward podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Ross. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I really do say that, and I'm not going to overstate it. It is amazing what you guys have accomplished as an organization. And the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast today is just the value and your vision. You're a baseball guy. I don't know if a lot of people know it, but you're a baseball coach at heart. I remember, playing against you guys, Dallas Tigers. Teams were always playing the right way. They play hard. They play the game the right way. But I'm curious as we kind of start this show this morning and today is tell us about Five Tool. Tell us a little bit about what was the vision, what was the need, and what were you looking to accomplish, back in 2013?
Well, I had a group of, two different teams. I had a group of kids that graduated in 2007, and then I had a group of kids that graduated in 2014. The 2007 group, 6 of those kids went on to play professionally, and the furthest we ever traveled was Stillwater, Oklahoma. And then, when I had my 2014 group that, it's got 2 guys in the big leagues now, Michael Kopech and Parker Mashinsky, that have been up and down. The message was, hey, you got to travel, you got to get exposure. And, we traveled to a big event and we performed well. And then the very next weekend, we were playing at Trimble Tech High School in Fort Worth, and there were 19 radar guns in the stands. So what transpired is the following Tuesday, I was having lunch with Tony Vitello at Torchy's Tacos in downtown Fort Worth. This would have been 2012. And, I said, hey, Tony, I'm just not going to ask my parents to spend $3,000 to travel. And, when we've got this type of exposure and opportunity, right here in our own backyard. And, I'll never forget it. Tony said, well, hey, let's put together an event next year. Let's invite 8 to 10 teams. We'll play at TCU. He was the recruiting coordinator at TCU at the time. He goes, I'll talk to Jay Sirianni about getting UTA. And, that's how it was founded. I mean, there was no genius marketing scheme or marketing plan. It kind of happened like everything else happens in the game. It happened by, kind of a common goal of making sure that, the right opportunities were afforded the kids. So, that's why we set everything up to be a regional concept, especially in the metropolitan areas and throughout the state of Texas. I mean, the competition level is as good as it gets. And, I think baseball is more of a regional game. The example that I always use, Ross, is, 4 years ago, everybody in Texas could tell you who the quarterback was at Clemson. It was Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Nobody could tell you who the shortstop was at Clemson.
Wow.
And a lot of that has to do with, football is more of a national game and baseball is a regional game. And the majority of the opportunities for kids to go play are regional. You leave the Power 5s or now Power 4s out of it. The majority of these kids that are going to play are going to go play at, Ranger or Cisco or East Texas Baptist or, wherever it is. And I think the most important thing to understand and remember is that playing is playing. It doesn't matter where you're at. If you love the game and what the game's going to teach you, just getting to play one more year is what's most important. So that's how it all started. And then, we had an outreach from people wanting to expand upon what we were doing. And, I think now we're in 18 states and we've got some unbelievable people, really good baseball people that run our events and are engaged with the customer base and the players. And we've been extremely blessed.
That's awesome. Talking with Lynn Vanlandingham here on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Also want to say this, that other beautiful gentleman on your screen is Mr. Jim Schwanke, and he needs no introduction. So hi, Jim. Lynn, I want to get into a little bit of the model, the 5-tool model, because the regional thing, we know that when you play in college, the majority of kids that go on to play college baseball, they're not going to go from California to New York. What you said, they're going to be within 4 or 5 hours of their home. So regionally speaking, talk to me a little bit about why college recruiting most of the time, and I know you're not a college coach, but you see the model. Why is it? Expand on that. Why is it a regional game?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do, you get in football and basketball, and for years and years, those schools provided full scholarships. Whereas from a baseball standpoint, at all levels, there's a lot of partial scholarships. There were preferred walk-ons, so the expense of the family was one thing. I mean, it's one thing to send your kid to Notre Dame on a full ride. It's a different to send them up there at $55,000 a year with a 25% scholarship. So I think that's a lot of it, but also the opportunities are just more present themselves in different levels throughout college baseball. The 1%ers don't need a whole lot of help, and those are the kids that are going to TCU and Oklahoma and Georgia and Texas and LSU and all of these places. But the game creates so many opportunities to stay around the game if you love it. At the smaller schools that eventually can create an opportunity to end up at one of those Power 5 schools. So, I think there's just more opportunities to play the game. I mean, probably more so than any other sport. I mean, you don't have near as many junior college football programs or junior college basketball programs like you do in baseball. And I think that's why it makes it more regional.
Man, that's a great comment there. I'm curious because you're sitting here running this giant at this point, and you got to love the game of baseball to be doing what you're doing. So I'm curious personally. Tell me a little bit about your upbringing. Like what made you fall in love with the game? Why do you have such a passion for baseball and players and coaches?
Well, I mean, I grew up in the Texas Panhandle, and their population base in the town, around the town I grew up in was 200, just south of 200,000, just south of Amarillo. But I mean, it was distinctly the man that I played for in high school who became our head coach in my sophomore year. It was Tom McPherson. Tom actually, Coach Mack actually left Canyon, I believe, in 1989, went to Kade. He wound up winning over 900 games. He got inducted to the Texas High School Coaches Hall of Fame 2 years ago. But, really that was it. As far as, really drilling my passion. But, back then things were different as well, too. I mean, we get a baseball game on television, once a week in the summer, and, you're just kind of glued to it until I got in junior high and high school. And then cable TV was invented. And then, we got, the Cubs on WGN, and,
Yes.
we got the Braves on WTBS. But also back then, there was much less to do for younger kids. So, we were playing wiffle ball in the backyard. We were in the vacant lots playing the game. And, it's just something that I loved. I think, when you're driven to try to be as successful as you can be, and then something in front of you always creates failure, I mean, it just drives a passion to go out and continue to work until you can, have a little bit of success. And, that's to me the greatest thing about our game. Hey, playing on television is awesome if kids get to do that. But what it teaches you about life and what it does in regards to, creating a young man the opportunity to be a better husband, a better father, a better employee, a better man. Those are the things that we learn through dealing with adversity and failure that you carry on for the rest of your life, not when you're just through playing baseball. And, Tom McPherson, then I also had a chance to play for Larry Hayes at Texas Tech,
Wow.
who was, I mean, maybe the most phenomenal human being I've ever met in my life, as far as taking care of your business, doing things the right way, holding yourselves accountable. It was just great teachers that I had and had the blessing to be associated with that, continued my passion for the game once I got older.
What was it in your playing days? Because I'm digging, man. What was it in your playing days that you loved most about baseball?
Well, I mean, to me, really, I mean, it's the camaraderie. I mean, I woke up this morning at 6:30, and I've got a group thread of guys that I played with and against, back in
Heck yeah.
1988, and we still, are jabbing each other, and
Yeah.
they were West Coast guys, so it was Pac-10, and we were, Southwest Conference guys, and neither one of those conferences even exist anymore, but we still like to gouge each other and talk about it. And it's those lifelong friendships, the ability to accomplish things together. And, for me, I was a below average Division I player. I had to be a team guy. I had to find a role. I had to work hard to be able to do that. And, it was just fun to go and accomplish those things together. My first 2 years at Hardin-Simmons, I was part of the first team that at Hardin-Simmons, the only team that ever beat the University of Texas.
Wow.
It was a midweek game. It wasn't a weekend series, and we didn't face Greg Swindell, but it was still an accomplishment that, you still talk about to this day. And those things, they just really stick with you, and how much fun we had on the trip home, after we had accomplished something that was significant in our lives.
I love hearing that. Talking with Lynn Vanlandingham of Five Tool on the Baseball Forward podcast today. Lynn, 10 years in, 11 years into Five Tool, what's the coolest, what's one of the coolest things about Five Tool and what you've been able to witness with Five Tool? What's one of the, talk about something that stands out to you as a success with Five Tool?
Well, I mean, a lot of it is just getting to see these kids, go on and play at the next level. And you remember watching a kid when he was 15 years old, and now he's playing college baseball, and he's 21, and you've had the opportunity to see him, mature as a player and, as a young man, and, just getting that opportunity, but also, the relationships that, we have with the professional scouts and, the college coaches and, guys in the sports agency business like Jim. I mean, I don't know if Jim would say this, but I consider us good friends. And, every time we have the opportunity to get together and talk baseball or watch baseball together, I mean, it's just something that's extremely enjoyable. And I would tell you that I probably think it's the thing that brings me the most satisfaction is the relationships that we've established, inside and outside of our organization.
Yeah.
The individuals that operate our events in California, now they have kids. We just went to Arizona for the Arizona Fall Classic, and we had dinner with, our operator, Aaron Cable, that runs the Arizona stuff. And, he brought his little girl and his little boy, and, they're about to have another little girl. Those relationships, are kind of, just special, that is part of this blessing that we've been a part of.
That is so well said. You know what? I feel like I'm like the debates the other night. Jim, I'm going to give you a minute to rebuttal. Tell me that you guys are good friends.
Oh yeah, we've known each other quite a while, and it's all because of the game. It's wonderful that Lynn feels the same way about his high school coaches that I did. I think that's one of the great relationships that a young man can have. And it's gravitated towards this, select baseball model now that's out there. One of the things that I think triggered Lynn's involvement with Five Tool was something that we went through. You go to Knoxville and play in a tournament with a D-bat team, and you get to the semifinals and you're playing the Dallas Tigers.
Yep.
You drive 2.5 hours outside of Atlanta when you're part of a 350 team tournament and you're playing a team from Fort Worth. And you're going, why am I making this trip? Why are our families spending so much money to do that? I think it's important at some point to be on a national stage and see how you stack up against other people around the country. But as far as developing players and doing things at the right level, you can have the highest level of talent. And I think Lynn does a good job of getting more and more kids involved with tournaments that involve lesser, I don't know what the word is, not as polished of player yet. and staging those tournaments for those kids too, because they can develop also. So yeah, we're good friends, and I think it's wonderful that the work that they do with promoting players within their system is cool.
I agree. And you know what I'll also say, Lynn, just so you know, I have two sons, a 10-year-old and a 9-year-old, 5th grader, 4th grader. And pretty cool to hear kids say, hey, are we playing in the 5-tool? Hey, are we playing in the 5-tool? And I know you probably hear that, but that's pretty cool, man. That's pretty cool to know that the brand has it's gotten up there. So that said, do you ever step back? Because I'm guessing your vision, and I know you were prior to 5-tool, you're a businessman. I believe it was Sinicola and Sons. Is that right?
Yeah.
You're a good businessman. You understand business. Do you ever step back and say, whoa, what the heck happened?
Well, yeah, the growth was not ever anything that we planned and strived for. I think it just happened with the ability for us to surround ourselves with great people.
Wow.
We brought Ron Brewer on board. He had run the Albuquerque Baseball Academy, and per capita, that guy's probably coached more big leaguers than anybody in the world. And then we back in 2015, I believe, we added Jeff Kahn, who was working for CBS Sports, and was their NFL editor, and on the social media side, and he came over and we started ramping up our social media stuff. So I mean, it'd be great to tell you that we had this huge vision and this 10-year marketing and growth strategy, but it just kind of happened organically. But it all happened around a common theme of people that have a passion for the game and people that want to, help and assist kids and getting a chance to stay around the game one more year. That's kind of what the goal is. We never envisioned that it would be like this, and it creates unique challenges in regards to making sure you can replicate the way we want it done in different parts of the country. But when you find like-minded people, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to find a way to go and make things happen. And we got Aaron Cable that runs our West Coast stuff. He's got Adam Yasik in Northern California, Tim Arakawa in Southern California. Alan Dyer runs our stuff in Colorado. We deal with Tate Thorson in the Midwest, and it's just the common thread is there's great people that love the game, and that's why it's had a chance to be successful. And for us, we don't pound the desk and say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. I mean, every individual's got to decide what's in the best interest for their son and where you go play. We just want to provide an opportunity that's regional, that we think can be fiscally responsible, where you're sleeping in your own bed and you're getting to eat at your own house and those sorts of things. If you have aspirations of, traveling 6 times a summer and you have the means to do it and you want to do it, I mean, hey, knock yourself out. I just want to continue to create opportunities regionally where I think these kids can showcase their abilities and play in front of the guys that can create an opportunity for them to play the game one more year beyond high school.
I love talking with Lynn Vanlandingham here on the Baseball Forward podcast. I love hearing. I think the coolest thing about doing this podcast is I get to sit here and just listen. And I get to listen to guys like Jim Schwanke. I get to listen to guys like you, Lynn Vanlandingham, and the coaches. And it never gets old hearing how important relationships are. And to the young men, to the players that are coming up, to the coaches, that's to me what I'm gathering from hearing from the guys that have kind of been there, done that with the experience, how important relationships are in the game of baseball, because it's not really about baseball, and it's about networking. It's about being good to people. I'll put it, before we move on to the next topic, put a bow tie on how important relationships are just in life in general, Lynn.
Well, I mean, to me, it's everything if you want to be happy. I mean, nobody wants to go through life alone, and your ability to have common ground with people and share things and accomplish things together, whether it, be with your children or your spouse or your teammates or your coach or whatever it is, it's what makes us tick as individuals. And those, it's funny. It just flashed back to me, you guys may or may not know David Wiley. David was a big umpire in the Southwest Conference when I was playing. And, he was not our favorite. And a lot of that had to do with, if you even made a bad face, he'd blow you up and humiliate you and things like that. Well, 2 years ago, he retired, and I had a chance to go have lunch with him. And it was just phenomenal, things that we could recall in a Tuesday doubleheader at Southwestern University in Georgetown and those different things. And so a lot of times, it brings itself up in a relationship you never even dreamed that you might have. And it brings back so many good memories. And, we had a good laugh about it and talked about it. And I hadn't seen him in 30 years, and so you don't even know the breadth of those relationships until, something triggers it later in life. And I just think that it's one of the most beneficial things about our game in regards to what it teaches young men about becoming men and being able to, maximize your opportunities. The other thing it's going to do for these kids too, Ross, which you don't understand is, if you play college baseball, once you get done, every time you go on a job interview and it's on your resume, it's a talking point. So what you're doing is you're creating yourself another opportunity for a career that might be outside of baseball, just because you had the opportunity and you were one of the few that got a chance to experience something like that. Our world's love for sports is always going to create that common ground with an employer or whoever it might be. So to me, that's a long-winded answer, but that's kind of the way I view it.
Jim, I want you to piggyback. Go ahead. Talk about relationships, Jim.
Well, one of the things that Lynn does a good job of, and they had a junior college event a couple weeks ago out at Melissa. I guess there were 25 junior colleges that came to Dallas, Texas. So every scout that's around here could be in one spot and watch those guys. But simultaneously, they had an umpiring clinic going on. And I want to compliment the guy that runs your umpiring group. What's his name again? I love that guy.
Sam Kaya.
Sam was umpiring. I'll never forget this. And this is relationship related a little bit because, we had our fun with umpires too. But he was umpiring in the Connie Mack World Series. And we had a young man named Tyler Watson who now scouts for the Padres in the Houston area. His dad, Gene, was the player development director for a major league team. And when they go around the country, they're always looking for umpires that they want to bring into pro baseball. And so this guy, Sam, was doing such a great job umpiring ball strikes in this Connie Mack World Series game that he wanted to meet him and recommend him to get into pro baseball.
Wow.
And he met him and he asked him his age at the time. And it was about 20 years older than we even thought he was.
Wow.
Wouldn't work. But that gentleman is now involved in youth leagues and trying to get umpires better and better and better. And as much as I had fun with umpires as a coach and a player, to be on AstroTurf and do 4 games a day in this day and age and do it as well as they can based on their training and experience is a great testament to Sam, because he gets a lot of good guys out there, and they were training while they were umpiring these games for all the junior colleges and trying to find guys that could help the sport.
Awesome. That is really good stuff. I'll say this, as just observing, everybody is positive about Five Tool. I always hear good feedback from Five Tool, and I feel like you guys treat people the right way. The kids are put first, and I think that's so important, just like so fundamentally in coaching. Like me as a coach, if I just want to go coach my son's teams, what's the most important thing? Making sure that we are putting the kids first. And I feel like that's what you've made that model, player centric, family centric, like common sense centric. But we'll move on. We'll move on, Lynn, talking with Lynn Vanlandingham here. Lynn, I'm curious for the parents out there, because you're a parent of children and you've been through this. What advice do you have for parents navigating the select arena, high school baseball? What advice do you have for parents in general?
Well, there's three things that are very distinct days in my life. And all three of them revolve around the last time that I watched my son play. I had three sons. And the last game that each one of them played is a significant moment in my life. And the reason is because I look back upon it and wish that I would have cherished it more.
Wow.
We get caught up in wins and losses, and now it's launch angle and velo and all these different things without really comprehending what it's doing for our young men to help them in their life. And I can just recall specific things when each one of my sons were playing that I thought was a big deal. I probably made into a big deal. And now Sheree and I, we have three grandsons. And do you think I care about an at-bat that occurred in 2012 now when I'm hanging out with those three grandsons? Absolutely not. And so, it's over in a flash. And, we spend a large part of our lives trying to make our kids grow up quickly. And then once they grow up, we're trying to pull them back in. And I think the thing that we need to make sure that we do, and all parents, is, cherish every single moment. Make sure that your son knows your love for him has nothing to do with his ERA or his batting average. I will tell you this. One of the greatest things ever told to me was by Kade Griffith. And I'll never forget this. The only thing that I dislike about it is Kade shared it with me when my boys were through playing. But Kade told me a story about his dad. He goes, we'd go to the ballpark and I'd be in the back seat after the game. And he goes, if I was 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and 4 RBIs, my dad would turn around and say, son, I really enjoyed watching you play today. And he goes, the next week I'd go out and I'd be 0 for 4 with 3 punch outs, and we'd get in the car and my dad would turn around and say, son, I really enjoyed watching you play today. Wow. And, that's what it really has to be about if you want to maximize your relationship with your son and with your children, and you want to maximize your ability to lead your son and lead your children. We've got to get focused on the things that really matter. And, a Friday afternoon game at the Melissa Z-Plex on Judson at 2:00, it's not very long till you just don't care about that anymore. But as we talked about with these relationships, and especially with your children, those things that you say to them and those scars that can be created by chastising them or, whatever you might do, those things last for forever. And that's and listen, I wish that I would have followed that advice better myself, Ross, but it's one of the things that I look back on and just say, hey, you know what, man, I wish I would have cherished that more.
Wow. That's really good advice. And that's something that I feel, I'll lead to you, Jim. It's something that I feel really thankful for, because I'm living it right now with these kids, and I'm hearing guys that I would consider like mentors, and they're telling me, no, praise the process, thumbs up for the work they're putting in, not talking about results, enjoy the moment. Jim, give us some words of wisdom on that topic.
Well, it goes back to some of the stuff that we've talked about on Baseball Forward with Coach Ward a little bit, where you talk about applaud and reward your son or daughter's efforts, and just sit back, like Lynn just mentioned, and watch the performance and enjoy the performance and do the same thing. I've told that story about, guy goes 3 for 4, buy him a hamburger. Kid goes 0 for 4, buy him a hamburger. And that story was related around a player who's now in the big leagues. So those things are real, and they're controllable. And yet I go watch my grandson play and I'll hear, where was that? Yelling at an umpire at 2:30 on a Sunday in a game that's really it's all about the kids, but the parents are so caught up in winning or losing. And those things take care of themselves. And so, my advice again is applaud your child's efforts and talk about how proud of them you are when they make the effort to go be with a teammate and hit or throw or play basketball, and then just sit and enjoy the game, and don't videotape every at bat and every pitch because you think you can help coach them. There are guys out there that are really good coaches, and believe me, if I've heard it once, I've heard it 100 times. Hey, my son won't listen to me. When you say it to him, it's really impactful. Well, that's true, because that relationship gets strained because of performance-oriented discussions instead of just love for the game and love for the relationship as a parent-child.
Love it. I love it. Talking with Lynn Vanlandingham here today of 5-Tool. Lynn, you're a former coach. You're a baseball guy. You played it at a high level. You coached it. Young guys coming up that want to make coaching their living, right? That want to maybe coach select, that want to impact young lives, that maybe they want to coach in high school. What advice do you have for coaches in coming up in baseball?
Well, I mean, I think we have some issues right now with young coaches with what's going on inside of our society, and that, you know, they tend to personalize losses as opposed to really understanding, you know, the process and what you're trying to do long term. And that's mold young men, teach them about the game that you love, you know, teach them to have a high baseball IQ. But, you know, we talked earlier, you know, before we started the recording about competitive spirit takes over. And, you know, I just think one of the things that's different today than it was 15 years ago is and I think it's in our whole society, everything becomes personalized. And, you know, back when I was coaching, you know, if we lost and got beat, yeah, I probably could have coached better, but, you know, I had 12, 15 guys that could have played better as well. And so, you know, it was a win as a team, lose as a team now. And, you know, I think the younger coaches, you know, trying to make a name for themselves and have a whole lot of success, get into a mode of personalizing a loss or something that goes wrong. And then they lose sight of what the real objective is. And that's really developing players. And, you know, if you develop players, then you give those players the opportunity to stay around the game as long as they possibly can. And, you know, what I always told everybody is that, you know, you should have a work ethic as a player that puts you in a position to play at least one more year than your talent should have allowed you to play. And that's really what I was, you know. I mean, I listen, you know, when the fastball got to 90, I wanted to hit it, but it was tough. You know, I mean, I wanted to hit it. It was just, you know, the pitch recognition, the ability to get the barrel of the ball and stuff like that. You know, I really struggled with velocity. And, you know, we have to stay focused on really what this is about. Now, listen, I understand for these guys, it's a business. It's how they're paying their mortgage and making their living. And that's great. That's all fair. But you still want to do it in a way. And the guys that I've seen that have had the most success in it are the guys that do it in a way that development is key. Teaching the game is key, and they do it in a way where competitive spirit doesn't rule the day. You know, competitive spirit is important. And, you know, nobody wanted to win more than I did, but you know, you have to be able to manage that to put yourself in a position to teach these kids what they need to learn to get the most out of their ability and put them in a position to play one more year than their ability should allow them to play.
That's a really good take. So I want a 1 minute, because this is going to be gold, Lynn. We're going to turn this next soundbite into gold. And Jim, I'm coming for you. I'm going to lead with Lynn though. So you got some time to think about it in 1 minute or less. To the parents out there starting select baseball, not knowing how to navigate it. I want you to tell me, what if I'm a parent looking for a team, what should I pay attention to? And if picking a coach, what should I pay attention to when putting my son on a team based on the coach?
Who's going to lead your young man the best, hold him accountable when he doesn't perform or doesn't act the way he should act. And, you know, the man that you play for. I mean, I go back to, I talked about playing for Tom McPherson and Larry Hayes. The man that you play for or your son plays for is going to impact his life for the rest of his life. Wins and losses don't. Okay. Batting average doesn't. ERA doesn't. But the man that they play for does. And so I think we get so caught up on, being on the national team or the scout team or the A team or whatever today's term is for it. And we lose sight of, hey, playing for the guy that's going to help my son be a better man and going to help my son become a better baseball player. It falls down in the order in regards to priority because winning seems to take over. And that would be my advice is you do the research on the man. And you may not like some of the things that he does for your son or says to your son, but if he's holding him accountable and teaching the game of baseball and teaching him how to live his life, I think that's the thing that I would focus on.
I love that. Jim, go ahead.
Well, we had our DBAT group, and we started with, the Texas Thunder, then we became the McKinney Marshalls and became DBAT. And we eventually had guys that played for us that were driving an hour and a half to come to our practices and stuff. And my advice would be to find an organization that has a good reputation and certainly ask questions of other parents, but go watch that coach a game. I used to do that with recruits when we were in big recruiting battles with LSU or with Texas and A&M and Florida. If you get a chance, go watch them. Go to the practice, and when they don't know you're there, and just watch, and you'll learn a lot about how coaches interact with players and treat people, and so that's what I would recommend is you go see a game that this guy's coaching that you're thinking about putting your son or daughter with, and watch him and watch how he acts, and you'll learn a lot about him or her in that setting, and do it. Find a team that you and your buddy can be on, because you got to find a way to have people that want to work with you and practice with you and have fun playing a game, so you don't have to drive an hour and a half to a practice. The two dads can pick them up, go to a city park and hit on a Sunday. Those things are important. So like Lynn says, regional, find teams that are close to you and be part of those, and find a coach that you've evaluated and have good references on.
I like that. Talking with Lynn Vanlandingham here today of 5 Tool. Lynn, just a few more questions, about 5 more minutes or so. I want your take on, you said something earlier about when you go into the real world and you have student athlete on your resume, what that can mean for you in the job, in the real world, in the job force. Sports in general, how can sports transform young lives?
Well, I think the greatest thing that it teaches, a young man or a young woman is, you got to work hard to have success. Even if you're extremely gifted and you don't have to work hard, eventually you're going to be on the field with athletes that are better than you, unless you're Derek Jeter or, Barry Bonds. That's what's going to transpire. And I think that's why you have, businesses in general that like hiring athletes, because they know they had to put in hard work. They had something they were striving to accomplish. They typically, in most sports, have to do it in an environment that's collaborative in nature, in working with people. And, I think that's what it does for everybody. I think the other thing too is, it creates a sense of belonging for a young man or a young woman when they're involved in a team environment. I think it puts them in a position where they're busy. So, decision-making doesn't become as challenging in regards to making bad decisions and what you go out and do, because, you're busy and you're doing those types of things. And really, sports is great, but there's all kinds of kids that have found the same thing in music or whatever it might be. But, keeping our kids busy in today's society outside of being glued to a cell phone, it's just really, really important, because, everything that you do in your life is going to revolve around, relationships with people for the most part, if you want to be successful. So, I think that's why sports is irreplaceable, regardless of, whether you like soccer or basketball or lacrosse or baseball or football or whatever it is. these young people being engaged in those things are going to do nothing but benefit them in a lot of ways.
You've impacted the game in a really, really at a really high level, and I don't think that you ever necessarily set out to do that, but you are. That's just the fact of the matter. 5 Tool is impacting the game the right way. So I'd be curious for you, who are the greatest influences on your career? Because I think that matters because of what you're doing now. Obviously, they've had some influence. So who are the guys that you look to and say, man, I'm so thankful for those guys?
Well, I'm going to start with a woman that I've been married to for 35 years. We started dating. I was 15 and she was 14.
Wow.
Now we've been married 35 years. We have 3 sons and 3 grandsons. And, she's the foundation, in my life, and helps me want to be a better person and holds me accountable in the sweetest way you possibly can. And any of those that know her, and the majority of our customers do, because she does everything on the back end, with registrations and helping teams get rosters in and everything. If they've had a chance to deal with her, they'll understand that. But, beyond that, I talked about Coach McPherson and Coach Hayes. I worked for a guy inside the Caterpillar organization, Dave Harris, down in San Antonio, that, was a phenomenal influence on my life. I will tell you, some of the greatest advice my dad ever gave me was that, hey, listen, whoever you work for, they're there for a reason. And, it's real easy to not like your boss or your supervisor or your coach or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, if you want to be the best person that you can be, what you want to do is take something away from somebody, even though if they're not your favorite, they've got a good characteristic that you can learn from.
Wow.
And, I had a guy that I worked for early in my career, right after I got out of college, and, wasn't my favorite, but the professionalism that I learned from that guy, and the fact that I was willing to commit to learn something, even though it might not be fun every single day, I think made me a better person. And I think we're in a society that we spend so much time trying to find the flaw in others to make ourselves feel good about ourselves, in all facets of society. But what you do is, if you look to other people to find the best characteristic from them that you might be able to implement in your life, all you're going to do is enrich your life. And so that's a choice that you have to make. Do you want to be a better person or not? If you don't want to be a better person, then look for the flaws in everybody, and I promise you won't be a better person. If you want to be a better person, look for the good things in other people, and then try to implement that. And then I promise you'll be a better person, and you'll be happier in your life.
That is gold, baby. That is gold. That's really good. That's the first time I've ever heard that, so I like that a lot. I'm going to do that. All right. Just from a romantic love of the game, baseball, we all love baseball. What's one thing you would do to improve the game of baseball in its current state?
Well, I think we have to change the culture inside of baseball from basically 13U and down, Ross. If we really want the game to be what it should be about. Again, we get caught up in the wrong things because of competitive spirit. We're all talking about pitch counts and kids being overthrown, which I get it. But if you want to reduce pitch counts, let's eliminate -8 and -10 bats. You make kids swing -5 and -3s, then you're going to reduce pitch counts. There's all kinds of things. Jim and I have kicked around this deal, and think a great thing for baseball in the fall would be to play 8-on-8 baseball. 7-on-7 football has become absolutely huge. And if we can create an environment for 8-on-8 baseball, guess who doesn't have to pitch in the fall? There's all kinds of things that we can do that make the game again about baseball IQ. And, we talk about young kids not knowing where to go with the ball. Well, we've created an environment in youth baseball where, hey, we want to hold runners on. We don't want to have tight bases. So, kid gets a leadoff walk on the first pitch. He's stealing second. On the next pitch, he's stealing third. And we can't teach infielders how to turn double plays because they're never in a situation with a runner on first and second and less than 2 outs because of the culture of the game. And I got into this disagreement with a very good friend of mine. He goes, well, if you go to tight bases, that's not real baseball. And, my answer to that is, okay, you go tell me the last real baseball game you went to that there were 15 stolen bases.
Wow.
I didn't think about that. So, if we can, but again, we talked about, we want our kids to grow up so fast. But, if you want to reduce pitch counts, put a kid on the mound like Little League Baseball does, and don't let him worry about having to hold runners on, which is a kid that, is still going through his coordination and his development. Let's focus at 10, 11, and 12 years old on throwing strikes and catching it. Let's go to -3 and -5 bats for these kids. Yeah, they're not going to hit as many home runs. Their batting average may not be as high, but I guarantee you when they turn 14, 15, and 16, they're going to be much more ready to compete and play the game the way the game needs to be played and in a manner that creates the opportunity for them to play the game as long as they possibly can. So that's the thing that I would really like to see change.
Man, oh man. It never ceases to amaze me that the number of major league shortstops available stays the same. The the minor league numbers have, Jim, they've gotten smaller, right? The teams, the rounds in the draft have gone down. So there's this college, there's a finite number of available spots that we're telling these kids to go get, but we're not equipping in the right way. And I think you nailed that, Lynn. Lynn, last question I have for you. And Jim, I want you to join on this one too. Okay. Very simple. When you were a player, I don't know if you guys had walk-up songs back then. What would your walk-up song have been?
Man, I don't even know what to say there, Ross. I'm telling you, I was so worried about not getting beat inside. I didn't care about the music that was going to be playing that day. So, I don't know. I listen to all genres of music. I'm a big fan of the 80s, and I'm a big fan of Alabama from the 80s on the countryside, but it's just something I really hadn't even thought of. I'm
going to pick one for you. If you're going to play in Texas, you got to have a good in the band. That one.
That's a good one.
Jim, hit me with something good, man.
Well, first of all, we didn't have that stuff back then, so it would probably be something with the Eagles. I can't think of what it might be. Maybe Lion Eyes and tribute to umpires. That's a tough one. I wanted my son to use Creedence Clearwater Ride Willie and the Poor Boys, but he didn't go.
That's a good idea. That would have been a really good idea. Well, Lynn Vanlandingham, man, number one, keep doing what you're doing. Like, there are a lot of people watching, and congratulations on what you guys are doing at 5 Tool, because I know it takes a ton of people, but keep doing the great things. We're so thankful that you joined the Baseball Forward podcast today. And I'll let you give you some last words, and then we'll close it up.
Well, I'll tell you, it's humbling and a little embarrassing that I feel like I get way too much credit for what's transpired with our organization. But what I'll tell you is that our organization, I think, is an example of what happens in your life when you surround yourself with amazing people. And when you have great people around you, your decision-making gets better, your accomplishments grow, and, you're going to make better decisions in your life to be happy. And when you're happy, you have a chance to be more successful. So, to all the kids out there, it comes down to decision-making and who you surround yourself with, and your life gets really, really glorious if you can surround yourself with great people. And that's what we've been blessed to have, Ross. I mean, we've just got an amazing group of people that we have fun doing this with. They're passionate about the game. They love the game. And, they want to help kids. They want to see the kids get a chance to experience what they experience because they know of the impact that it had on their life.
Lynn Vanlandingham, thank you for joining us on the Baseball Forward podcast today, my friend. We'll see you soon.
Hey, and Ross, just so you know, your podcast is now tied the number of times that I've been on our own podcast. So it's unbelievable that I've got these guys running this podcast. And I was invited on one time for the 100th episode, and I haven't heard back from them since. So maybe it was something that I said, but just so you know, you know, Baseball Forward is now tied with appearances of Lynn Vanlandingham with the Five Tool podcast.
Hey, baby, we're trying to surround ourselves with good people here at Baseball Forward. I know that.
Yeah.
Lynn, thank you so much for for hanging out with us today. Baseball Forward podcast, Lynn Vanlandingham, Five Tool Baseball. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right.
See you.